Hello and welcome to video number 7, and we're going to talk about user interface design. So once you have a visual flow chart or map of what your software will do, it's time to work on the user interface, which is what the user is going to see. So the flow chart really was for you to understand and for the programmer to understand, but the user interface is also for the programmer, and so that you have an idea of how things are going to be laid out and all of that. So creating this along with the flowchart will allow you to connect the visual dots, thus creating better specifications for the programmer to understand. So to do this, you're going to need to have an image editor or other tools. So with that said, let me go ahead and show you how. Okay, so this is kind of going to be the fun part because you get to actually create the user interface, which is what the user is going to see. So if we go back to Lucidchart over here, we saw that we color coded everything just to make it easier. If you think about it, if we didn't color code it, it would be hard to figure out what is happening. So we can see that the user comes in, they obviously see the WordPress plugin, and what we need to figure out is what they're going to see. All right. So obviously the programmer, if they have CSS and a little bit of design, and if they've developed WordPress plugins in the past, they are pretty much going to be able to figure this out. But you do want to give them some guidelines, but you don't want to say, hey, you have to do this, but you want to give them some structure so that they have an idea of what you're looking for. Because otherwise what happens a lot of times is, even with website development or any project development, is a lot of times people say, I want this, but they're thinking this, well, then the programmer is thinking something totally different. So you want to make sure that you are able to make sure that they're on the same page. All right. So we come back here, and this is what the user sees, the WordPress plugin. They see a list of campaigns. They have the ability to create new campaigns, and they name the campaign. They find the hot content. So if I go through here, it's pretty easy. In fact, most programmers should be able to figure this part out, this, and this. Now, we just want to make it, like I said, just to make sure that we're 100% on the same page. So what do we want people to see when they first see the WordPress plugin? Maybe they see the list of campaigns, and maybe they see the ability to create new campaigns. So let's write that down. So I want you to open up Paint or whatever you want to use. Let's just use Paint because that's the bare bone minimum. If I can use Paint, you should be able to use Paint or something else. All right, so usually when you come to a site, let's see here, I haven't used Paint in a while, but you normally, let's use this here. Let's see what happens. Okay. So normally you enter a box like this, and then of course you see the left-hand side with a WordPress plugin as the menu bar. And normally you see like the plugin, information here. And then of course you see like, the top bar, and then of course the main part is right here. So maybe we'll make this red. And actually, yeah, we'll just keep it black. All right, so within here itself, we have the options here. So maybe the menu bar here, we could say menu bar. So I'm going to make an arrow here. And the menu bar, they should have the ability to see a list campaigns, create new campaign, and don't worry if you can't figure it out, or you're like, okay, how's this whole process going to work? Do I need to create a short code? Do I need to do this? Don't worry about it. I would allow the programmer to do that, but you're just trying to get an idea for yourself what you're expecting. But over here, we can see list campaigns. Maybe they see the name of plugin. And then inside here, we have, let's say they click here. Let's see here. Let's say the welcome screen, you have a welcome screen. So welcome screen. And depends on you what you want to put on the welcome screen, that's fine. But let's say that they have the option to choose the list campaigns, create new campaign over here. So that's going to be a totally different screen. Next, so let's see what we're going to do here. Next, I'm going to open up a new window. So that's going to be screen 1, the welcome screen. All right. So now we're going to be focusing in on that little box. So I'm going to open up a brand new window and we're going to put a box here. This is what they're going to see. Now, if they click on create new campaign, or let's say this, they're going to click on list campaigns. So I'm going to type list campaigns. And let's see, we're not going to focus on the menu bar. We're just going to focus on the main box kind of thing. So let's go back over here. List campaigns. So what do they see? Maybe they see statistics. Maybe they see a list of campaigns. What do they see? So we're going to say, all right, let's do that. You know what? I'm just going to make a menu bar so it's just easier. Here they see campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 3, campaign 4, and they should have the ability to edit each campaign. So that should be that, and then let's type in paint again. Now all these are easy, but when it comes to actually implementing the other parts, let's see. So that's easy. List campaigns, create new campaign. And so we have create new campaign. Let's do create new campaign. So you might be thinking, why am I doing this? Well, I just told you the reason, but it'll make life easier, a lot easier for you later on. So all right, so create campaigns. This part's going to be a little bit more elaborate. Create campaign. So maybe there's a box for, let's see, campaign name. Let's see what else here. We don't need that for now. Move back here. Okay, so name campaign, then find hot content, but then they need to enter the keyword to do that. So name campaign and then maybe keyword. Enter keyword. So maybe we have a box like a form field here, and then maybe there's a form field here for the keyword. All right, so we enter the keyword here. They enter the enter button. So let's see. Maybe there's an enter button. So we'll just make the star as like the enter button or something. They click the star and then it produces the content. So from here, maybe there's a progress bar. And the progress bar is here, it moves around like, oops. like that. Make it blue like that. So as we're waiting, the progress bar is there because it does take time to go out and scrape content. So maybe the progress bar is good, so it just makes the user think that it's actually collecting data. So you do that, and then after that, we go back over here. Then it goes to Google, enters the keyword. So now this is what the user sees, right? This is all the background. So user doesn't even see what's going on here. All right. So because we know it's green and blue, we can skip all the way to the green. So next, the user sees a list of hot topics and pics. So maybe after that, we could say, here's the list right here. So maybe they see a list here, a large list, and they can choose or they can select which ones they want. So maybe there's like a radio or checkout checkbox or something where they can select the hot topic that they want. They select it. And then, of course, the next screen would be it actually copies the content to the WordPress blog. So how does that look like? Well, maybe it automatically does that. I don't know. But that's really between you and the programmer, but the programmer should be able to figure all that out. So that's not something that you really have to worry about. So what I would do next is I would just, copy this and save these to your computer, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, I'm not going to close all these out because we're going to need this in the future video when we put together the final specifications and the final contract. And we'll see you there. Hello and welcome to video number 8. This is writing your specifications. So congratulations, by now you have in hand the most important part of the software creation process. Now all we have to do is take everything that we have put together and make it look like it's something that it's an official document that you can hand over to your programmer. Now this is a very, very important part because if you get this part wrong, your programmer will charge you more money to decipher what you want. So what we talked about in the previous video about the telephone game, where if you tell somebody, they tell somebody, and they tell somebody. Even if it's 3 people, by the time it gets to the third person, it's totally different. So that's why you want to make sure that you have something in a written document, which essentially is your contract. And your contract between you and the programmer, because if your programmer turns around and says, no, that's going to cost more money, or I can't do that because this is not what we talked about. This is going to cost more money, cost more time. You're just going to have to go along with it if you don't have a written contract. So this is your contract, and I'm going to show you how to finalize the document. Okay, so what I need to do is simply grab all the images. So I need to grab this right here, which is the flow chart. I need to grab all 3 of these user interface designs that I created. And of course, I need to grab this here. Now, as far as the pictures go, what I like to use is I like to use a program called Snagit. There are many different programs out there. Basically, what you want to do is you want to grab this image and put it into a document. And in this case, we're going to be using Word. Now, if you're using a Mac computer, you can simply click, I believe it's like Shift something 4, and then you can grab the image. But if you're using a PC like me, you're going to need to have a program that actually grabs the screens. So I went ahead and did this for this one, and this one. And with Lucidchart, what's nice about it is you can save it and publish it as a PNG, a PDF file, whatever you want to. But I went ahead and did that for this. And as you can see here, this is the flowchart here. We have the screenshots for the welcome screen, the list campaign screen, and of course, let's see, we didn't have this one here. So I'll need to go ahead and do that right here. So we grab that there. So we grab that, and there we go. So this is right here. So we're good to go right there. And then of course we have the actual information. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to go to Word, and let's just go ahead and copy and paste that in here. Now I want everything to be uniform and look nice, so I'm going to maybe size it down. WordPress plugin hot content finder, specifications. And specifications is just a fancy name of a document that contains information for telling the programmer what to do. All right, so this is a step-by-step process. We can say step-by-step process outline. And then below that, we want to have the flowchart. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, which is right here, and paste it here. So what I did just now was I just selected all, and I'm using a PC, so I did Control A, Control C, and I'm just copying it directly. Another way that you could do this is save it as an image, and of course go in and insert the image into the Word document. So that's what I did here. Next thing we need to do is we have the user interface design. So we want to make sure that everything is in order. So this one's the first one, which is the welcome screen. This one's the second one, which is the list campaigns. So we have that here. And we have this one here. And then of course we have this one here. And there we go. So that's pretty much it as far as the images and all that goes. Now you still need to write down the deadline, and this is something that you're going to agree upon with the programmer. Expected deadline, what is covered for the price. So price, bug, price, because that's something that most people don't think about. They don't think about the bugs. And every program is going to have bugs. Even the best of best programmers, you're going to run into bugs. That's just something normal. I mean, if you think about, even Facebook has bugs all the time, and they're very obvious bugs. So even the biggest multi-million-dollar companies have bugs. So you just got to price it in there and figure out what the price is and negotiate. Is the bugs included in the price, or is it an hourly wage or whatever? I will say from experience that a lot of programmers will say, hey, I'll do it for like $500 just because they need the money at that moment. But then when time comes around, they realize, oops, I need more money. So you want to make sure that you negotiate everything up front first before you get started. So expected deadline, the price, but are the bugs included in the price, or is it hourly? What is it? So basically what is covered. And you want to give all this information down here. And anything else that you can think of, any concerns, any questions, you need to talk to the programmer first. Don't go on Upwork or anything like that and just pick somebody. Make sure you do your due diligence. Get on the phone, get on Skype, talk to them. Make sure before you invest all that money, because software development is a good amount of money. And especially if you want a good plugin that is dynamic. So what I showed you down here though is, and I won't confuse you further, but Google, whenever you create scraping programs, if you decide to go with this, Google does not like to be scraped. So your programmer and you will need to figure out a way around that, which is normally by using proxies. And proxies cost money. The more users you have, the more proxies you will have, and that's something to think about. But obviously, that's why I'm saying don't worry about it right now. When you talk to your programmer, they're going to be able to help you with all that information. All right, so once you're done with that, turn it into a PDF file, and you are good to go. Okay, so now that we are pretty much done, this is kind of a bonus, but in video number 9, I want to talk about finding programmers. I'm not talking specifically about going out and finding a programmer, but I'm talking about what kind of characteristics and traits that you should be looking for within a WordPress plugin programmer, because not all programmers are going to be the same. One programmer may be knowledgeable in one area, but unless they're really knowledgeable in WordPress plugin and they've created WordPress plugins before, then you're going to want somebody who is, their skill set is that, and not somebody who is really, really strong in a different area. You want somebody who essentially is specialized in this area. All right. Now, a good WordPress programmer is going to need to be well versed in PHP. PHP is basically a web application programming language. You don't really need to know all that, but it's just PHP. And then MySQL, which is the database that the WordPress runs on. And PHP and MySQL actually is a program language that runs many other frameworks besides WordPress. So just keep that in mind. So they also need to be well versed in the WordPress framework, meaning they have developed WordPress plugins before. Now, they should be able to do a little design, but don't worry if they're not super fantastic on the design level. You want somebody who is strong on the programming side, more importantly. Now, I want to warn you and I want to caution you. There are tons and tons of PHP and MySQL programmers out there. But unless they have produced at least minimum 3 WordPress plugins, do not go with them. Because like I said earlier, PHP and MySQL is a very common language to produce web applications. They should also be well versed in CSS3 and JavaScript. CSS is a design element which will allow them to create the user interface based on what you created earlier and make that happen and make it look nice. They should also be able to read someone else's code. What I found over the years when hiring people was that most programmers want to create a plugin from scratch. And while that is great and fine and dandy, you want somebody to have the ability to read somebody else's code. And what I mean by that is, let's say you give somebody a plugin. Let's say you find a WordPress plugin from another programmer. You buy the rights for that plugin and you want to make it better. If you find a programmer that wants to create it from scratch, that's not good. You want to find a programmer who can read somebody else's code to make it better. So there are many different approaches that you can take. You can either develop the plugin from scratch, and that's fine, or you can buy out a WordPress plugin that might not be doing as well and then make it better, but you want to find a good programmer. A good programmer is just that, somebody who can actually read somebody else's code. If not, then run, they are probably newbies. And that doesn't necessarily mean they are all newbies, but it's better to find somebody who can read somebody else's code. So whatever site you can use Upwork.com, you can use Elance.com, which I believe now is actually Upwork.com. There are other sites out there. Whatever site that you decide to use to hire your programmer, do not hire anyone who doesn't have good feedback. So you obviously need to do your due diligence, look at their profile, make sure they have really good comments, make sure that they are actually developed plugins in the past. And most of that is pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you do your due diligence. Now, another thing that I recommend that you do is it's better to work with individuals and not agencies. Because when you have problems or bugs that arise, you want to have a dedicated programmer that you work one-on-one. A lot of times when you work with agencies, they will give you someone to develop your plugin, but then when you have problems, they'll give you somebody else. And it just creates a very major headache and hassle that you just don't need to deal with. So that's my recommendation to you. Hire individuals that you can work one-on-one. or individuals that you might be able to partner with and develop the plugin. So you might be the business side and the marketing side. You can partner with somebody to develop the WordPress plugin and give them a cut, like a 50% cut or whatever percentage that you decide to give. But at the end of the day, individuals are just easier to work with. And you want to think long-term as well. You will want to budget the initial costs and the long-term costs. Now, what do I mean by that? This is what usually happens. If a programmer bids, let's say $600 to develop your plugin, know that in reality that it actually costs 2 times. So normally it would cost $1,200 over time to fix bugs. Yes, it might be $600 for the initial, but there are going to be bugs and it's going to take time. Also, if they say like, oh, it's going to take 2 months, normally, yes, it might take 2 months for them, but there are bugs and they're going to have to work with you to make it work. So normally I double that or even triple that amount. Sometimes it takes 4 months. Sometimes it takes triple the amount, which is 6 months. So just keep that in mind as far as budgeting goes. Most of the time, if you even see somebody that says, oh, I can do this in a week, or I can do this in 2 weeks, unless their feedback says that, I would be very, very skeptical of that. I've seen some programmers and I've hired some programmers in the past that can do it in 2 weeks, but realistically, after fixing bugs and all that, it's usually 2 or 3 months later. Very, very rarely have I seen people do it overnight. Now, like I said, Upwork.com is a good site to go to and find programmers. And always ask to see previous WordPress plugins. Make sure that they have developed programs before and plugins before. And another little tip is make sure that they all look the same or perform the same way. So what you're looking for are patterns. I've already taught you how to find patterns in consumer demand. But if you want to figure out if somebody's legit or not, look at their plugins, see if they have a style, because everybody has a style. If you look at an artist, they all have a specific style. If you look the way you work, you have a specific style. And if they all perform within a specific style, meaning maybe they look very, very similar or they perform very similar, that's a good indication that they actually developed that program. Now, obviously, feedback is very important. That's a good indication as well if they actually know what they're doing. So at the end of the day, what I'm just saying is do your due diligence. And because the reality is that some people plagiarize, some people copy other people's plugins, and that's a great way to detect. In this day and age, I've seen so many people pretend to be programmers and copy other people's plugins just to get by. And then you realize later that you've paid this person and they've taken code from somebody else. So another thing you want to make sure to say is all of your code needs to be original. You cannot plagiarize or copy anybody else's code. All right. So with that said, congratulations again. You've reached the end of this video course. Make sure you go back, watch the videos, and make sure you actually implement everything that I've taught you to turn your idea, to design it, and now once you're done, you can give it to your programmer.